Welcome back, listeners, to another virtual Retiredside chat. I'm hoping that these chats bring you information as you sit in your home and watch them or share them in a group or a meeting. And I would ask that if you watch this particular one today on a legislative update with Steve Beebe, our IRTA lobbyist who's joining me today, that you make sure your friends do watch this. This is one that will not stay on our website past March because the information we're going to give today will become dated very quickly. Before we get into what's happened with the legislative session since it reconvened January 8th, I would like to take some time to address emails that I have gotten as of late. And I get several of these, but they all seem to be around the same topic. So I'm going to, with Steve's help, kind of address some of the concerns of our members. One particular email that I got just this past Thursday says, I don't understand why we need our legislators to approve a check or raise. It should be given that retired teachers need an additional check yearly and a raise. What is the Hoosier Lottery doing for us? They are supposed to be helping with pensions. So we have two questions here, and I want you to know that my answer in no way is critical of what has been said in this email, because before I joined IRTA, I'm sure I would have had some of these same thoughts. You know, we worked very hard during the teaching profession, during those years in the classroom. And we knew as we worked that we were not making a great deal of money, but that money was being put aside for our retirement, for our pension. But I have to look back when I signed my pension papers in 2017 and have to think about the fact that no one at that time when I met with Empress, there was no guarantee when I saw the amount that I was guaranteed for my retirement until my death. There was nothing said about an enhancement, a cost of living adjustment, a 13 check. None of these terms were mentioned. So when I joined IRTA as your executive director, it was a great surprise. And frankly, I was very pleased that we advocate to try to rectify that, to have cost of living adjustments, to maybe get a 13th check for our members. But again, this was nothing that I heard about when I signed those papers back in 2017. So why do we have to ask? Because it's not anything that was written in stone when our pensions were developed. It is something that we have to go back to the legislators and ask for every 2 years during the budget session. And we're asking for a 13th check this year, even though it's not a budget, because money is in the reserve account, thanks to the Hoosier Lottery. But we still have to ask legislators to allocate that money to be spent on a pension enhancement 13th check. I hope that makes sense. And if it doesn't, please call me with further questions or concerns. But the bottom line is we do have to ask. And what we're really fighting for is a change so that something is given to us annually and we won't have to continue to ask. But the Hoosier Lottery has not let us down. Over each year cycle, they do put $30 million in the teacher retirement fund, but it doesn't automatically go to us until the legislators pass a bill, take the vote, make the decision for us to have it for that particular year. Anything you want to add to that, Steve?
No, you covered that, really well. Our pension plan was, developed years ago, long before, you or I were involved with IRTA. And, we don't know the history, don't understand why or why not, there wasn't an automatic enhancement, COLA or 13 check built in, but there wasn't. So we're dealing with what, we have to work with. And I think your other point is that there is a bill moving through the Senate right now. You testified for it, this week, that at least establishes a framework for a long-term 13th check or COLA that, if it's done right, and we're going to try to make sure that it is, we won't have to ask for, every year. But the devil will be in the details.
Yeah.
In that. So, we have our work cut out, and we need to work extra hard this year to try to make sure that we get the 13th check this year, or maybe even next year, until we bridge that gap to the permanent plan that the Senate is working on now,
Where we get something automatically. And that would be such a huge step for retired educators. Another email that I receive, and I get quite a few of these, when I sent out, thanks to Josie Savada, our Director of Communication, because she is the one that helps me develop these email blasts, and she records these Retiredside chats, so she is just invaluable to us. And when we sent out the latest one asking members to reach out to their local senator, specifically saying that during this wait time, if they could allocate the funds for a 13th check and what that would mean to them personally, it would be greatly appreciated. Well, when we sent that out, I got some response back. And, in particular, a few were saying, well, we need stronger advocacy from you guys too. And I understand that there must be great frustration because you don't follow me around on a daily basis. You don't follow Steve around on a daily basis. And it's hard to know what we are doing here at the state level. I can tell you what we're doing, and I can also assure you that what's happening at the State House, it is in my mind, in my thoughts, 24/7, and it will be until mid-March when this session ends. We do advocate. And as Steve mentioned earlier, I testified this week in the Senate. I've testified in the House on a specific bill for a 13th check for this session. And we go, we watch, our presence is known, our presence is there, we talk to legislators. But the truth of the matter is we are two people. And even though we represent so many, and the legislators know that, it means more to them if they hear from their constituents. More voices voicing the same things is what is heard loud and clear. It's a team effort, and we need you to help us with that. Steve.
Oh, I can't emphasize that enough. There's nothing more important to a legislator than getting reelected. And Laura and I, we can only vote for two of those legislators. So the constituents that vote for those legislators need to make their voice heard. Legislators do listen to their constituents. And, I agree with Laura. We need to have a consistent message. They need to hear the very same message from their constituent at home, and constituents, the more the better, that Laura and I are giving them, at the State House. Legislators are human. Sometimes it just takes, a little longer, to get a message to sink in. I know some people have to hear things 7 or 8 times before it sinks in. And, that's exactly what we're, trying to do, that, make sure that the legislators understand, our need for the 13th check.
And before Steve quickly reviews what has happened since January 8th, I do want you to know, there is frustration when you don't hear back from the legislators. You're like, did they hear me? Did they get the message? But we've heard, I'm sure Steve would agree, we've heard lately that they're hearing more and more from their constituents. When I first came on board as the executive director, the message was they weren't getting very many emails at all, but now they seem to be hearing from a lot more. So you may not think you're being effective, but I promise you, you are. So take heart in that and don't be discouraged. So
Right.
Steve, let's kind of go through what's happened since January 8th.
Okay. Well, we had what I thought was a very positive and very interesting development in the House. The House of Representatives have, they've been our allies in this 13th check debate for several years, and they were again this year. The House leadership decided to make the 13th check bill a caucus priority. And, as such, it has moved very quickly, through the House. It passed with a vote of 97 to nothing. Laura testified. We were talking before we started this Retiredside chat that almost every legislator in the House has signed on to be a co-author of the 13th check bill. So we've got, outstanding support in the House. I think the House specifically, made it a priority to put a little more pressure on the Senate. It just raises the profile of the issue, and I believe their thought was it would make it a little harder for the Senate to say no, or ignore that issue. So, again, a lot of positive things on the House side. The Senate side, there are some positive things going on there, as well. Senator Buchanan, who is also chair of the Pension Management Oversight Commission, has Senate Bill 275 that will set up the mechanism for some retirees to receive a COLA. Others, will receive the 13th check. And, Laura and I are hopeful that we get to, work on the details, of how that's all going to work to make sure that, it benefits, the most of our members. But also coming out of the Senate, I'm not getting the feeling that they're enthused about a 13th check for this session. And that's why, we have asked you to contact, your senators. We need every single Indiana state senator to hear from multiple retired teachers, family members, and friends about the importance of this 13th check. And, I know that there'll probably be more communication coming out from this office, asking that between now and the session must end March 14th. I think it could end a week before that. So, there's a little time left, but, not a lot. And the key is, we need to work together, and we need to work with RIPIA as well. They are partners, in this, and whatever we do moving forward, it's important to coordinate with them, and again, going back to what I said earlier, have a consistent, message.
Now, am I correct that my testimony would still be recorded on the Indiana General Assembly website? How long do they leave those on there?
I think those stay on there for several years.
So where I'm getting at is we will be sending out information that this chat is available. And so you can say, well, everybody got that. They should know it's available. But I need, once you've watched this, so I'm talking to those of you that are watching now, once you've watched this, please invite others to watch this Retiredside chat. If they want to look up House Bill 1004, they can see what we're talking about. If you look at bill action, it will show you how all of the House of Representatives basically are co-authoring that bill, and it has moved to the Senate. We'll have to see what happens in the Senate. But again, like Steve said, we're not getting positive feelings that it's going to pass in the Senate, even though the money's there and it's just an allocation of funds. So it's more important than ever that you reach out. And then the Senate Bill 275 that I testified on, you can go back to recorded sessions. I testified on that on Wednesday, the 24th. And you can see that Empress also got up and made the statement, the money is there for the 13th check. Even though I wasn't testifying on the 13th check, I was testifying on a bill that will help with future plans to allow something happening annually. I mentioned the 13th check, as did Ripia, as did Empress. So, my recollection of the last short session, because this is only the second one I've been involved in, there wasn't a lot going on and we didn't do as much. We haven't stopped working since last budget, last spring. I mean, we haven't stopped working since I've come. So it is so important for you to know that even though you might not know what we're doing daily, I guarantee you it is something. We are working, and we are so fortunate to have a lobbyist at the State House who is constantly informing me what's happening. So again, help us spread the word, help us be a strong voice so that we have a better chance of getting what we need for our members. And Steve, I thank you so much for joining me today. Anything else you
I'm happy to be here. And I just want to say it's, I think we've got a great team, but we need everybody on the team to do their part and play their role. And, if that happens, that gives us the best chance of success, this session. And, I intend for us to be successful. I know Laura does, as well. So, please, contact your legislators. And if you have, questions, I'm sure Laura would be happy to answer them.
Anytime. Questions, suggestions, complaints, I really don't take them personally. It helps me be better in working for you. So thank you for joining us today.